Okay, it starts with the Pledge of Allegiance and roll call, so. And Alexis, do you want to do the roll call?
Committee member David Jones,
Present.
committee member Joe Davis, committee member Jerry Legers,
Here.
committee member Tom Owen.
Here.
Thank you. Council liaison Bill Whitmer. Council liaison Stacy Holen. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Please step up to the microphone and make sure that, does that have a green light? I'm not sure. Is that,
Okay.
it's not.
Check. Okay, here we go. Hi, my name is Johnny Wilson. I'm here to talk about the agenda item that you discussed in January with regard to the regulatory signage installed on Encinal prohibiting left turns in the evening between, I think it's 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. And just to comment generally about the other improvements that you've made adjacent to Encinal, I want to say they've been working really well. The traffic's been flowing really smoothly. Vehicles are no longer swerving around the temporary speed humps that you've installed. With regard to the no left turn restriction, I understand there was some concerns from Mr. Whitmer about potentially causing traffic diversion. And I haven't seen that particularly because it's maybe restricted to the evening. Today, when I saw the traffic flow in and out, there was only one vehicle out of 50 that illegally proceeded to make a left turn there. But generally, there was no blocking of traffic, and it was just working really well.
And I said I agreed with the 2 to 4 time.
Well, I think that was a good choice. Other times in the morning, it just doesn't seem like it was necessary. So in the evening, I think it is good. It gives the police power to enforce that as needed. But I just wanted to comment on that. It wasn't on the agenda today, and just give that feedback that I think it's working really well. And I encourage you to harden the temporary measures you've installed. For example, the temporary speed humps, they've worked great, by the way, but if you're going over 30 miles an hour, they don't really have a great impact. 14-foot long speed humps would work better. Of course, they cost money to install, and well, they have their drawbacks as well. But that was my general comment. I think you're doing a great job in general with the recent traffic control installations around Encinal. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is coming out of Encinal?
No, there is no turn restriction exiting Encinal. There is a turn restriction right now if you're driving eastbound on Encinal, say you're coming from El Camino Real, and you wanted to turn left into the school, you can't make that turn now. There's a regulatory sign on the right side of the road that won't allow you to make that maneuver between 2 and 4. And it's working great. I mean, one person violated it out of 50 cars, but they weren't blocking traffic. So, yeah. Thank you.
Do we have anybody else? Okay.
Hello. Good evening, committee members. My name is Adrian Silva. Like Johnny, I'm also an Encinal parent. And I'm also a volunteer for our Safe Routes to School program. I wanted to speak to the committee members today on two issues. I want to comment on recent traffic calming features that have been installed on Encinal, and I also want to ask to open up a line of communication with our Safe Routes program so that our efforts at the school are being done in tandem with Atherton efforts also. First of all, I want to thank the town of Atherton for installing the rubber speed cushions on Encinal. Just like Johnny was saying, I've noticed, I usually bike there. Sometimes I walk with my kindergartner, and I've noticed that car speeds have, been affected positively. I like to chat with our crossing guard right there in front of the district office, right where the crosswalk is in front of the other speed cushion. And I talked to her and we've noticed improvements. And the delineator posts that recently went up, especially around the crosswalk as well as on the turn lane coming from Middlefield, have helped with the cars that are, coming out of the lane to pass around. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that that has happened. I also want to ask that the town of Atherton work or be looped into the conversations with our Safe Routes efforts at the school. I'm just a parent volunteer, but I am in communication with the county of San Mateo, the school staff, and the city of Menlo Park. And we're trying to promote and encourage biking and walking to school, but we know that infrastructure improvements are needed to really help that. And not just for students, but for residents of Atherton that live on Encinal. So again, I hope to maybe hear from one of your planners or somebody else so that we can talk about these kinds of things. We have ideas on how we can improve. Obviously, there's going to be coordination with Menlo Park that has to happen, but we think a walk audit is needed for the school so that we can figure out how can we improve traffic and pedestrian safety for all users of the road. So if there's any plans of that, I would like to know. I was looking online, looking for resources to see if there's any, where can I see where Atherton is going to have construction? If you guys give me like a time warning, I'm not sure, I'm not keeping track. If there's somewhere where the public can see what construction is happening. Those speed cushions were great. They were a nice surprise after the winter break. But I'd like to know what else is coming. And I just saw that there's some speed signage that you guys are going to talk about today, which I'm very happy to see that. So in closing, let's talk. I emailed in my public comments. We're having a bike bus on Earth Day. And it'd be great if Atherton PD could come out and join us. It's going to be a bunch of kids and parents riding to school on Earth Day morning. And I think they would love to see some community support, even if it's just, get one of your patrols out there to come by down Laurel or greet us at the school or something like that. So again, Adrian Silva, please reach out to me separately and we can talk about it because I'd love to have Atherton in on the conversation. So it's not just a Menlo Park and like a concerned parent conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. You guys have regular, meetings? Safe route?
Yes, we do. We have meetings with the city like once a quarter, like the principal, the city staff, transportation planner, and we work on various projects for outreach and education, but we need to do some more infrastructure stuff that I think we could all benefit from talking together.
Can you send the info about your meetings to Robert and the council? One thing, we're undergoing our bike ed master plan refresh city, so it seems like you guys should be in touch as part of that fresh process, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, and so by providing your information, you'll be reached out to both by PD and Public Works.
Okay, any other public comments? Alexis, do we have anybody online? Okay. We'll close public comments and approval of the, for January 28th.
I have one question, and that is, just the very last, next to last sentence. The critical speed means that 85% of the vehicles in the survey were traveling at a speed of 38 at or below.
Yeah. Anything?
That was it.
Okay,
Second.
And my.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous approval of the committee meetings. We move on to the item 1, which is going to be
Item B.
discussion of speed limits.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. We're here seeking your review and potential recommendations to the City Council with regards to potential speed limit reductions along designated safety corridors and school zones. Several months back, we came to you and made a presentation regarding the local roadway safety plan and the designation of safety corridors, as well as initiated the thought of whether or not certain the speed limits in certain school zones have the potential for reduction. And so with your recommendations on the local roadway safety plan, the council approved the local roadway safety plan and designated Alameda de las Pulgas, Marsh Road, Middlefield, Oak Grove, and Valparaiso as safety corridors. And they had asked staff to bring back to the Transportation, Bike and Ped Safety Committee for consideration and potential recommendation, any potential adjustments along those safety corridors, as well as any recommended reductions in school zones when children are present. The California Vehicle Code is sets the requirements for setting speed limits. And as was mentioned by Member Jones, it's typically set based on the 85th percentile, which is where 85% of the cars go at or below that speed. There are some allowances for reduction of that, and that's the requirement is typically to round it to the nearest 5 miles an hour, and based on findings, you can reduce it by 5 miles an hour. Recent changes to state law allow for a further reduction within certain designated zones, including business districts, senior areas, and along safety corridors. It allows for an additional 5 mile an hour reduction beyond what would normally be permitted. At the same time, legislation also authorized the reduction of speed limits within school zones, which were typically set at 25 miles an hour, down to as low as 15. Most of our streets, as you know, are residential, and the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. So the signage around the schools are the same speed limit as, on a lot of the streets, the same speed limit as the regular speed, but with a designation that you're in a school zone. So we have the opportunity to visit what the current speeds are, whether or not there's a desire to recommend any sort of reduction. And so I'm going to kind of break this up and allow you to have a conversation about the safety corridors separate, and then we can go into discussion of the school zones. So in the staff report, you have a table of the current speed limits, as well as what that potential reduction could be. At this time, the only street that staff is really looking for feedback on is Valparaiso. And obviously, if you have recommendations on the other streets, we certainly want to hear those. But with the recent improvements to Valparaiso, where we buffered the bike lane and narrowed the travel lane, speeds are starting to slow down a little bit. Menlo Park has been asking us about potentially reducing the speed limit on Valparaiso from 30 to 25. As you know, Valparaiso is split jurisdictionally down the center line of the road. So one side of the street's in Menlo Park, the other side is in the town of Atherton. The police department's here to discuss any observational data. They're out there on the streets every day looking at things. So at this point in time, I don't know whether or not it warrants reduction on any of the other streets other than any of the other safety corridors, other than Valparaiso. It would be recommended to take another look at Alameda when we do the traffic and safety improvements on Alameda. With that, I'm available to answer any questions on the safety corridor side.
Okay.
So I have one question, and I'm jumping ahead. The 15-mile-an-hour designation for school adjacent zone, is that when children are present? Or is that across the
Yes,
board?
it's when children are present. So if you're driving down the street at 8 o'clock at night, it doesn't apply.
It does apply all day. From probably half hour, 45 minutes before school starts to about at least an hour after school is over. It's not just for all kids from to or from school. It's for all day.
Doesn't take a physical child. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So I said, we'll jump into that one.
Yeah.
Robert, just clarify for me, you said the only one recommendation?
Well, I'm gonna say, so what, I'm gonna say, one of the primary ones is Valparaiso, given the changes and the push that we have from Menlo Park to reconsider our speed limit. I believe that currently the way things are, there really aren't many issues. I mean, we do have some accident history on a couple of the roadways, like Middlefield has a few, more than a few. Alameda, we're in the process of reconfiguring and making adjustments to, and so I'd be a little hesitant to kind of do the speed limit reduction before we make the improvements that we're planning on.
I guess the question I have about Valparaiso as a really frequent user of it, do you have any indication that people go 25 miles an hour? I see traffic there now. Admittedly, I'm not usually in the late afternoon, but I see traffic doing 5. Do we have a sense that this is going to be accepted?
I'm gonna say, so we've, I think it was a couple of years back, we reduced the speed limit from 35
It
to
used to be
30.
35, yeah.
It used to be 35.
And a lot of people remember that.
And so it has, I mean, we reduced it, but then we followed that with changing the striping on the road. And so I'll defer to PD as to whether or not that's had any, has had a tangible effect on how fast people are driving. But the anecdotal information that I got from others is that the visual narrowing of the road has slowed people down a bit.
Sergeant Metzger, do we know what the critical speed is on Valparaiso on our side of the road?
The key thing to remember is that when school is in session, students are simply from El Camino to just beyond Elena, just west of Elena. That's all school limit. So the speed limit is there. So the speed limit through that area, Monday through Friday during school times, is 25. Now, critical speed does not matter in a school zone. 26 miles an hour is a violation in the school zone. So it, matter of the critical speed, getting it lower or higher doesn't matter. It's, there's no school in session, then we can't start stopping vehicles until 38, 39. When school's in session, that 25-mile-an-hour zone all the way through there, it's already set. The violation is 26. So lowering the speed, all of Valparaiso, the concern is that you will start kicking out vehicles onto other side streets that aren't striped like Valparaiso for traffic, for more traffic. Sense?
I drive that street every day, and is it marked that it's 25? Or
Sure, it is for the school zone. Yes.
As a clarification, it's marked in the school zones
yeah.
for 25.
And the other question on just clarification, you say on Valparaiso, El Camino to town limit Alameda
It is before that.
or that?
Yeah, I
Those
think it's
county?
like Camino Los Cerros.
Then is that unincorporated county right there?
Yeah, so I say, I mean, we already are in conversation with, or Menlo Park has been in conversation with us. Anything that goes beyond the Menlo Park jurisdiction, we would have to coordinate with the county. But I believe that the county has a separate project under construction upstream on Alameda, and they're looking at, they're currently evaluating where their speed limits should be.
I guess I'm just a little bit confused that we're doing this for safety for school
No,
districts
I
are
say
already
there-
25 miles.
I want to separate the safety corridor conversation from the school zone conversation.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about school zones separately. And so right now, what we have is a roadway that is signed at 30 miles an hour, both sides of the road for regular traffic. And then there's school zone signage at 25. And so one of the question is would you want to recommend that that stay at 30 and 25 or just be 25?
Okay, so what I think everybody agrees, we'll just go one by one through the streets. Make a recommendation on change the speed limit. Or if people want more time to go look at these, observe what's happening on the streets.
Robert, are
Sorry,
we
you're only
talking about,
asking-
I'm sorry, are we talking about reducing the speed limit on Valparaiso all the way from El Camino to Alameda? And as much as that part is ours,
Yeah.
the critical speed that's going to support
So the
that?
critical speed helped set the speed limit at 30. The safety corridor allows you to drop it by another 5.
And what's the one violation?
It would still be the critical speed. Whatever, it doesn't matter what you set the speed limit at, vehicles still must travel at or above the critical.
Well, he's, I want to be clear, because that doesn't apply in the school zone. What about in a safety corridor zone? Not apply?
It's my understanding that once the speed limit is set, that's what it is. As long as it complies with state law, it's enforceable. But the PD allows for a certain tolerance, I guess.
Tolerance. The issue is you
Yeah.
can't, somebody can guess the ticket and they'll get thrown out if you're not above.
No, like I said, the clarification is state law allows you to set it and enforce it at a lower speed.
We will not win traffic court anything below the.
Yeah, that's
A question, Sergeant Mesker, if the speed changes from 30 to 25 or that does not change what is determined to be the critical speed, is that correct?
Correct. After some time, after vehicles travel through that area at 25, then it hopes that the critical speed would then drop. Be able to enforce a slower speed, but you can't stop unless it's a school zone or a maximum speed on the way, those types of situations, it's critical speed.
And what has to happen is we wait a period of time and then you remeasure the critical speed is what.
Correct.
What's Menlo Park say, since it's a shared road?
Menlo Park wants it at 25.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah, I'm going to say that they were the impetus of the consideration. they've been pushing for the last year or so to drop the speed limit to 25.
I just want to
Why?
clarify.
What reasons have they given last year or so?
Again, I think well, they've had a push citywide to reduce traffic speeds and calm traffic. And so one of the corridors that they have been concerned about is Valparaiso. They've also designated it as a safety corridor, which allows for that additional speed reduction.
You know, they've reduced Bay Road 25. And they've reduced Alameda de los Santa Cruz Avenue to Sand Hill, which is a 4-lane, to 25. They're just kind of doing a blanket. We don't want to speed 25.
Reduced El Camino from Valparaiso to Ravenswood, 0 during
They're good at
They're
that.
doing a hell of a job.
Yeah.
And I have yet to see anybody slow down on Sand Hill Road, see an enforcement, see anybody.
Yeah. I agree.
So, sorry, Robert, you want a recommendation from this group in the on whether we support reduction to
On any of the corridors. I would recommend that you open to public comment
Right,
before you make
right.
any
I'm just-
decision.
or what I'm thinking of.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on this topic?
Before you go, I just want to clarify. I thought you said you only wanted recommendation of
Well,
Valparaiso.
Like I say, that's one I need to be able to respond back to, but the council asked for you to consider all of the corridors.
Do we want to break that one out so we can give you that one, or?
Well,
You
what I'd
just
say
go
is
through
we
the
should
list of
just break them
streets.
out individually
Okay.
because I don't want to do a blanket. And there was a public comment. Okay, please.
Just break that.
Yeah, in case it's echoing, check.
Check.
Okay. Thanks again. Johnny Wilson again. I wanted to comment that I don't take any objection to the recommendation in the staff report with regard to the prima facie speed limit or any modifications that were identified or recommended by staff. But I do want to speak to the option that the committee has to recommend reduction of the speed limit adjacent to schools to 15 mile an hour. And I wanted to encourage you to support that reduction. And I'd like to kind of go over why I'm recommending that. Yeah. Okay. So we'll have
We'll have public comment for the 15 mile an hour speed limit.
okay. So, and then you don't intend to make a motion, or you'll make a separate
No,
motion?
we're just gonna do the safe, what's it called? Safety corridor first, and
Okay.
then we'll go to the.
Yeah, and that's why
School.
I wanted to
Okay.
comment. I have no objection to the recommendation with regard to the safety corridors. Thank you.
Okay. And do we have anybody online? Comment? Okay. So, well, let's start with Valparaiso. I certainly don't see any reason to change it, but
Oh, it would be really weird to have eastbound at 25, westbound.
I don't think they'll change it.
They shouldn't
I
change
don't
it
think
either.
they'll change it. And the other thing is, Sergeant Metzger mentioned is where's the traffic going to wind up on some other streets?
I would agree with you, Jerry, that if you look at many of the other matters before this committee, it's about mitigating traffic. Entire roundabout project that's being determined for Atherton Avenue and get it to mitigate traffic and yet slow down one of the major 4 east-west arteries, Valparaiso being. So I don't think it's in our speed from 30 to 25 as we did however many years ago from 35.
I'm not really supportive of passing a change that's not going to be followed by people. People know they can drive faster and they just realize they can't. Over because tickets are, I don't know why.
Or does it have to get across town?
Comments?
I'm inclined in the same direction. Seems going a little over. Especially since it's already been.
So let's take these streets individually. Let's start with.
My recommendation is continue your conversation going through street by
Okay,
street. And
okay.
if you have a recommendation to make a change,
Okay.
then we'll note that recommendation.
Okay. Alameda de las Pulgas, Stockbridge to Camino al Lago.
Clarify the schools up there by Stockbridge?
Also need it.
Stockbridge?
Stockbridge. Oh, God.
So this is a
A safety.
safety
School
corridor,
there.
so there isn't a to
Okay.
talk side. And I'm surprised the speed limit 35.
Why is that?
One more time, Alameda?
Yeah,
Alameda.
why is that section of Alameda Stockbridge?
Well, that's the full length of the road.
Oh,
But
is
yeah.
it?
I mean, our town limits are from Stockbridge to Camino al Lago.
Okay, so that does go.
Yeah, so
Past
it,
it, yeah,
yeah.
but up on the Stockbridge
But that-
side. I
but
mean,
that's past
so this is the
Entire
entirety
length.
of Alameda as it
Yeah.
transects or goes through Atherton.
Other than the school, though, why is that?
It's,
I'm trying to understand this designation, why we're picking.
it was designated as part of the high injury network in the analysis that was done by the county.
High what?
High injury network.
High injury.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I mean, if, think the designations were related to safety.
Sure.
And so it was listed as, we're allowed to designate up to 5% of our streets as safety corridors. We have a handful. And these are the corridors that have, call it the most amount of traffic and the most propensity for accidents and that kind of history. And so that's why they are designated as safety corridors.
Can I chime in with more? You guys reviewed the local road safety plan last year and adopted it. And then it came in front of the council. We adopted it, and within the local road safety plan, we identified through data provided by the county who had created this plan for us, our high injury network roads, which are this list. And in us declaring them safety corridors, that declaration has unlocked the ability for us to evaluate the speed limit. So it's not like council didn't pull this random list of roads. There was data backing it up. The council didn't opine at all about whether or not we think the speed limits should be changed. So that's why you guys are starting. Does that make more sense? The history of how we got here? So.
I've been on this transportation 6 years, and we go through the accident reports every meeting, and that's not a high accident area. Trying to think of the last time I had an accident.
We have accidents on Alameda all the time. I mean,
Alameda and Stockbridge is pretty much the only intersection where we normally you're supposed to know water, but I'm not sure how county made that determination, so I can't argue that. You know, we use their criteria, don't their criteria.
so I will start off by saying that, knock on whatever we got, generally speaking, we have a low accident rate. Okay, so it's not, I mean, if we're looking at where do we have more accidents than other, that's kind of how you weigh it out. So if we have a pretty low accident rate, and thankfully we have a low number of severe injury and fatal accidents in town, we'd like to keep it that way, and reduce it to zero at some point if we can. But we're not saying that you have a million accidents on it, but in relative comparison, these are the highest rate streets.
So it's a hot spot. Yes, relative.
Within
to-
Atherton.
Lukewarm at best.
Okay, but to Tom's point, we're talking about having a big influence on the flow of traffic through towns to implement something that, as we say, is a very low rate. This happens to be our town, it's a higher one.
The Stockbridge Alameda intersection, trying to think, how will whatever's happening at that intersection, that's a tough intersection. I've turned left and right there my entire life. But reducing the speed limit from 30 to 25 have, in my opinion, material impact on the accidents that happen there and why they happen there. And there's site issues. And all. Speed is a component. I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think it's the sole component. Automatically make those situations go away. But there is another flow issue, right? I mean, there's just major arteries. And I get that the major arteries for moving vehicular traffic are the same ones designated for whatever the safe route or the city routes for whatnot. But, there are pretty good, there's a pretty good bike lane, in my opinion, cyclist agree. We've done work to mitigate down at the turn coming up to Atherton Avenue from southbound Alameda. There's great changes that are happening there. Great changes happening at Atherton Avenue and Alameda are happening because of traffic. So you're not getting up to speed. Sure, we can. I mean, what happens on Woodside Road and then where the traffic backs up. But I think it's fairly self-healing, in my opinion, along that route. And then south of Atherton Avenue becomes a slightly different issue. You go stroll past Los Alamitas. But again, the traffic coming in and out, it naturally slows that section morning and afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Marsh Road. This one doesn't make sense to me at all.
Sure.
I mean, we have the canal on one side and residential on the other side.
Town limit is,
It's, I think the roadway goes all the way down near Fair Oaks.
so
The,
shy of.
the,
shy
the
of-
homes aren't all within the town. We have, I think about half, or more than halfway down is where the homes stop being in town, but the roadway is within our jurisdictional limits until Fair Oaks.
Unlimited.
Where, Sergeant?
Between, about halfway between, Fairhouse and Millville. You can get a number of buildings there.
Where the car wash is.
No, Fair Oaks to middle.
West of it. So halfway between Fairhouse, that car wash is right at Fairhouse. But halfway between Fairhouse and Millville is where halfway between start to go away to Shoulders. And if you looked at the.
And that's where like most of the accidents on Marsh Road occur?
Yes, and we do have a number of accidents of collisions that occur on Marsh Road.
And
Look
what
at
kind
the-
of accidents are they?
Rear enders. It's not necessary, and if you looked at the primary collision factor, it would be speed. It's not necessarily that the car was traveling above the speed limit, just merely the fact that it was in movement.
Traveling too fast.
Ran
when
into
it
the car in
impacted
front of
the
it,
car in front of
meant that it was traveling too fast. So the reduction of the speed. Effect on the amount.
So the area that we would be looking at to drop to 25 is what, per mile? The last quarter mile as you approach Middlefield?
Fourth to.
Everything
to an
along
eighth,
the
quarter
canal.
to an eighth.
Oh,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Sure.
Think about that.
Do not change.
Okay. Middlefield Road, from 30 to 25 from Encinal to Ringwood Avenue. Now, the speed limit starts at 30 in the county area, North Fair Oaks. It's 30 all the way through until it goes, at least until that correct?
I believe it's 30 all the way to,
Is that all the way to Willow?
Yeah, Menlo Park lowered it to 30 from.
Ah, okay, I missed that one.
Starting it,
I
Marsh?
was looking at that and I was wondering myself why it would be there. It would be more the
Like
longer
a marsh.
stretch, yeah. But I say similarly, I don't know that you all have any recommendation or desire to reduce the speed limit at this time.
either Marsh or Encinal.
Thoughts on this one?
On the build,
Middlefield Road.
need to change.
You know, during busy times, it doesn't even go.
Right? I mean, self-healing.
All right, let's move on to Oak Grove Avenue. From Edge
Uh,
to
Town limit is.
town
Other
limit,
side of
just the other side of
Middlefield.
Middlefield.
So just in terms of a notation,
Nativity
Okay.
Church, okay.
so. Yeah, so just a notation that this is in our jurisdiction where that network definition ends, it continues in Menlo Park.
So on one side, it's park, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
Outside.
we have a short stretch on, within the town and then it continues in Menlo Park. So,
because people get to Edge and turn right,
That's where
To Laurel.
Laurel
to
School.
Laurel, and that's why you don't get on.
well, I said that's where the study limited the end of the high injury network.
It's a big reduction in traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Edge gets 600. Yeah, yeah. I don't have any feeling to said either.
Okay, so
So we could
I
take a
I
vote
think
on
the
all of them.
consensus is no
No changes. for anything.
change related to the safety corridors.
Okay, do you want us to vote on that or?
We can do one final recommendation recommendation out of the committee at the end. We'll summarize it, what we hear, and you can
Okay,
correct
All
that
right.
motion. All right?
so then we're going to go to,
So now we'll jump over to the school zones and to kind of facilitate the conversation, there was an attachment to your staff report. I'll be projecting it on the screen. So kind of similarly, we'll kind of go school by school. You can have your general conversation, then open it up to public comment. And then we can again go school by school if
Okay.
you want to, or you can say we only want to talk about a couple. So give me a second here and I'll project that on the screen. Okay, give me a second. There. All right, so this is Las Lomitas. And so important to note that the recommendation is not to make changes on Alameda. It's a 30-mile-an-hour street and 25 already in the school zone. Reducing it to 15 at this point is not recommended. Camino al Lago is a shared jurisdictional street along the frontage of the school. And so if the committee wanted to make a recommendation to reduce that speed limit down to 15, we would have to coordinate with a county and they would have to make similar findings and recommendations so that the school zone is signed consistently.
and the speed limit right now is 25?
The regular speed limit and the school zone speed limit on Camino al Lago are 25.
Okay.
And so we're allowed to go 500 feet past the property for that speed limit reduction. And so that's why the designation there is to go from, in essence, from Fairview up to Middlefield, I'm sorry, up to
Alameda.
Alameda.
So I myself have not observed this area, school commute. Personally would like to go look at it.
What I think is interesting about that stretch of street, 25 miles an hour now, it's very impacted along the school during school pickup, drop off.
Yeah.
High activity time, and I don't know how long that time, an hour or something. But it's also the section of road in question, going back to the great roundabout debate, that folks will turn there to circumvent the Atherton Avenue Alameda intersection. Traffic back up there. So what does making that 1,000 feet of road 15 miles an hour do for enforcement or anything else for that? It's 25 is the town limit, and it's also designated a school zone. So you don't have a critical speed issue. You can go 26 and above. Does 15 miles an hour have any positive impact on folks that are using it as a cut through, or the prevention using it as a cut through? Whatever the
We all know that when Alameda backs up, cars between Olago and Fairview circumvent, back up. They do that at night, so the 15-mile speed limit, time limit. And see that's relevant.
Okay. So the next one,
So what do people,
well, like I say, my recommendation is we'll go through these, you'll
Okay.
get public comment, then we
Okay,
can go through
all
them
right.
again and kind of highlight where you want to go back to. So here is the area around both Menlo Atherton as well as Laurel Elementary, the lower Laurel campus. So the suggestion is to take a look at Oak Grove, whether or not there should be a reduction on Oak Grove as we front Menlo Atherton. Ringwood is one that you can look at, but again, that's a shared street, so we have limited jurisdiction in terms of doing anything on our own. But if Menlo Park or the county wanted to reduce speed limits, or actually it's Menlo Park up at the end where we have, and so if they wanted to, whether or not we would support that in terms of that reduction. And then Edge is our street. And so there's a lot of folks that park and walk along Edge for Laurel. Ringwood is completely outside of our jurisdiction in that area, and so that is the county. Okay, so you have that. Then the next one is, this is Laurel Avenue in the vicinity of Nativity. Menlo Park has already reduced the speed limit down to 15 miles an hour on Laurel and Oak Grove, and on their side of Laurel opposite where we kind of split the road. Theoretically, we can post another sign, but in essence, it's already a 15-mile-an-hour zone. And so PD has an option of enforcing within our jurisdiction as you pass pass Nativity. So just acknowledging the fact that Menlo Park has already done stuff. And so it would, if we want to keep that enforcement, it would be good to make it official. The next one, this is Encinal Elementary. The potential limits for the speed limit reduction would in essence be from Middlefield almost all the way up to Tudor. And so as
So Nativity is flooded up to where Atherton is, and then there's Oak Grove there. Why are we showing that we're continuing, or Menlo Park is continuing it all the way down to?
Ringwood,
Yeah. I mean,
they already have they have signage up from Ringwood approaching Nativity.
They have signage down.
Yeah, so the little blue dots are signs that Menlo Park has already installed.
But it looks like that along Ravenswood, right?
Oh, sorry, Ravenswood. I
On
apologize.
the
And
Ravenswood
I'm-
side between Laurel and something.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear why we have Ravenswood noted, but I know that Laurel is signed at 15, as I believe Oak Grove is.
Oh, I believe it should be signed on the other side of Glenwood, because that's about school for kids. Can't see it on the other side. Thank you.
Okay, so this is again Encinal. We recently installed the speed humps and some additional delineators, and then the recent signage for restricting left turns from Encinal into the school, as was mentioned earlier. Then this is Selby Adelante Selby. So we have opportunities to reduce the speed limit there, basically from Selby Lane down to Selby Lane just past Serrano. Then the last series of schools are related to St. Joseph and Sacred Heart, where we have opportunities on Park, Elena and Emily. And you have an opportunity as well on Alejandra. And that's primarily related to Menlo School, where they have the backside of their campus and the students go back and forth to Carton Field.
By the way, there's St. Joe.
Okay,
That was eliminated.
then I'll leave it as Sacred Heart.
Give the old guys a little grace, will you?
Okay, so that kind of goes through the different schools, the streets that we would have you look at, and at this point, you can open it up to public comment, and if they have a particular school that they want to bring up, then we can put it up on the screen.
Okay.
Clarification, talking about 15 miles wireless present,
That is correct.
and that it's
Other than that, it would be the normal speed limit, and for the most part, they're at 25.
I would think that Tom said, most of these streets you're pointing at during pickup, drop off in the morning, afternoon, 5 miles. So it's really time in between all day while this.
Question about Alejandra. Lines when children are present. So given the college and the dorms and whatnot are on the side of that. We're children, the college students, children, and present. So
I don't think the college is considered school zone.
No, it's more related to Menlo School.
I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know how much,
Yeah.
you know, what traffic there is going back and forth. Got two schools on one side and ubiquitous ball fields.
Are you indicating it might be a little driving through there, seeing kids in the area, high school kids?
I drive Alejandro drop off. It's not a Menlo school. Actually, it's a Sacred Heart thing. That's the route people go. You go up Alejandro and go. When you have foot traffic, it's somebody walking their dogs or it's, occasionally, especially in the afternoon. Not foot traffic. You get the Menlo College students crossing to get in the afternoon, sometimes the football in the high school.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the Robert or? Oscar? Let's do a public comments on. Johnny, you wanted to talk on this subject?
Good evening once again. Johnny Wilson. And I wanted to encourage the commission to support I should say the committee, to support a further reduction in the speed limits adjacent to schools to 15 miles an hour. A couple things to kind of consider in this. One, a lot of these streets are really shared streets. There's where you'll notice people walk off on the edge as far as they can, but there's vehicles that are kind of competing for that space as well. But with regard to going to and from school, some of our most vulnerable road users are walking and riding in these unimproved shoulders. Bike lanes on Encinal and travel lanes on some of our other streets as well. An additional speed reduction is needed to enhance the student safety by reducing the risk and severity of collisions. Drivers at 25 miles an hour, they just don't have enough time to react and respond to a child that stumbles or loses their balance while riding their bike. And I say that we just had the training wheels come off a couple weeks ago, and you know, I'm trying my best to keep it in a straight line, but it's not always possible. And so we want to signal to drivers that the appropriate speed to be traveling, right? In the event that something like that would happen, the kid would inadvertently kind of come out into their lane. And until dedicated facilities are provided on key streets like Ensenada, a speed reduction is the least thing we can do to improve the student safety. And when I say improvements, I'm talking about if we had a path or a safe place that they could walk that wasn't. What's that?
Sidewalk?
I'm not talking about a sidewalk. I don't think that really matches the character of the town, you know? Not a lot of sidewalks in country clubs. And when I think of our town, I think it's more a path would be more appropriate. But right now we don't have that, right? So we're walking in the bike lane. We're trying our best. We cut through Felton Gables sometimes. But, you know, but a lot of people do continue to walk on Encinal, many of these other streets. It should be recognized that there are very few collisions on local streets. And that's a good thing, but still parents don't feel safe walking to school, even though maybe they live just a couple blocks away. Reducing vehicle speeds can reduce the stress of kids walking to school and can improve parent confidence, ultimately resulting in fewer and slower cars on the road. But, you know, just changing the speed limit, that's not going to actually magically make people drive that speed. I think you've had a lot of conversations about that today. But what it does do is it gives tools to our police officers that have really been out there and making a big difference. So voting yes to reduce the speed limit adjacent to schools aligns with our general plan, CIR-4, which is essentially to provide a balanced network that meets the needs of our road users, and in particular, our most vulnerable ones. That's all I have to comment on this item.
Okay. We have another public comment.
Thank you. I wanted to echo what Johnny was talking about. I know we have to frame these conversations in terms of traffic circulation, traffic backups, and complaints of cars driving fast. And so we have to think about what these speed limits can do and what they can't do. And we understand the limitations. However, like Johnny said, this is a signal to the people driving by that there are people there. Kids are wobbly. This elementary schools, you're talking about, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8-year-olds trying to ride their bikes. They're a little wobbly, and there's somebody walking next to them, and you're riding with them in the bike lane, and there's a stressed parent driving behind you in their car. 15 miles per hour. I know that sounds pretty drastic, but I support it, and I support it because we're talking about small bodies that suffer much more impact damage than an adult would. And it makes a big difference. If somebody sees that, we see traffic, we see people walking, we see people biking, the speed limit is lower. It does signal to people there. It's an important thing saying that, listen, we know there are people here, there are kids that we're sharing the road, and we have to slow down a little bit. I support it. I just want you to think about what getting hit at, let's say, 15, 17 miles per hour means to getting hit at 27, 28 miles per hour. You guys know about the exponential damage as speeds go up. And that was probably mostly gleaned from adult bodies. So I just want you to think about the other users besides the traffic circulation, the cut throughs, how much congestion is this going to make? Think about that a little bit. And if 15 is just a number that you can't can't really kind of wrap your mind around, split the difference and say 20. But I really think that you guys should think about who are the people that are going to be there and who's going to be affected, and can we lower the stress for other road users besides the people that are in the cars. So thank you.
Thank you. And do we have anybody online? Okay. So we want to talk about each.
I can simplify it for you if.
I'm
you
all
wanna
for
go-
simplicity.
If you want to go one by one, or if there's any particular one that stands out to anybody, we can bring that up for conversation.
I can comment on Edge because I live right off the edge. And it's a nightmare to have parents parking on Edge and walking their children along the street. If anything needs to be 15, it's Edge Road. It's pretty ugly. I tried to get the speed limit changed 20 years ago, and the police chief said, no way would I change it. Yeah, there we go. Steve. Sergeant Mesker, you might remember who the police chief was back then. I'm sorry? Cater. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Personally, I don't have any objection to school zones to anywhere. My son went to Encinal, and this is before they had the new and flow, and crazy, just flat out crazy. Dropping kids off in the pass-through lane and hoping. The whole thing can be calmed down.
I'm a former Encinal, Laurel, Hillview, and MA Sacred Heart parent, so I've been through all these schools. Some of them seem like they're easy fixes because they're not real flow streets. The Camino al Lago, right along the school, it's not. I struggle more when we start talking about Valparaiso, Selby, and Oak Grove, where there's just a volume of traffic there. Like for instance, Oak Grove, for instance, yeah, I recognize nativity's there, but there's a parking lot buffering this that's there. It's more of a problem on Laurel Street. So I again, always trying to balance off, how we not drive traffic, right? Because we take Encinal, like I said, I'm with you. I went through the hell of riding my bike with my dog. And the problem, but make that 15 mile an hour, everybody's going to go to Glen or Oak Grove or down to Watkins, right? So we just divert the traffic somewhere else. So yeah, I mean, I guess my thing is I've struggled with it during the all shedding.
There be a request to remove speed humps on,
So if it drops to 15, take out the hump.
If I may, it would, in a perfect world, we would imagine that all of the cars traveling on Sentinel would just down to 50. But in reality, they're going streets. Encinal has traffic signals at Middlefield and Elk. Watkins has traffic signals at Glenwood has no traffic signal. Got
That's what he said.
the concern is if we already have a large backup of Watkins in the point where the field's backed up because of marsh and then this is backed up because of the field, start making turns there. So my concern is that more vehicles to those streets primarily, and talk about Watkins, we've got a park there. We have a sidewalk there, but and same with Valparaiso, if you reduce the speed limit on shoving to others. Valparaiso's more cyclists. It's a speed limit from and I can say that work the intersection of Build and Oak Grove for the right turn on red and speed. There, the radar goes all the way down. There are no cars. Into that.
Well, and we've really nicely marked Valparaiso, but the biggest change we have going on is people swerve into the bike lane to go around the cars that are trying to turn left onto Crane and other little streets there. That's crazy dangerous.
Robert, can I ask one question? So let's assume we recommend or at all of these, and we will say that. What would it entail to backtrack from that? How would that work? If we found out that mile an hour on Oak Grove was causing a whole lot more traffic on Glenwood, such.
Yeah, so the simple thing is that you're making a recommendation to council. Council would have to adopt an ordinance or resolution setting that speed limit. We would then change signage for those streets that are approved. It's a council action to change the speed limit. And so if there's an issue that comes up, whether direct to council or to staff or to the committee, ultimately that recommendation would go back to council to make any sort of adjustment.
But I think once
stop signs.
I talked with Robert earlier this evening about Ringwood, and I've been going to the meetings about Ringwood having a class 4 bike lane. So that would provide a barrier between bicycles, pedestrians. I wouldn't, I see a reason to go 15 miles an hour. If they're going to have that. And now I question the areas east of Laurel School. Get MA students walking to school, but where's this traffic going to go? Are they going to start cutting through the neighborhood? Frederick and James do cut throughs. So I worry about changing that speed limit. It's already pretty ugly at Holman Avenue where there's a stop sign. Up near Middlefield. It's just cars dropping off. I don't really see dropping and we're essentially would be dropping the speed limit for higher one. I don't. I think there's another option here. Don't have to decide on this. We can decide on some if we can observe optimally some of these areas go. Time any of this happens, summer. It's an optional.
I know I'm a heretic for saying this, Stacy Council, but I mean, having lived through Encinal for many years, the number one thing you could do to make that school safer, not drop the speed limit, but sidewalking. You know, Atherton is like, I mean, it's just craziness where we gave up being a rural community a long time ago. If you had a sidewalk on either one side of the street or the other, that would make that street so much safer for kids. Our sand on this topic.
Heresy.
Okay. So I'm hearing kind of a mix, and so I can either summarize what I heard some affirmative stuff for, and you can make a recommendation that way, or you can say, we want this whole thing to come back.
I mean, I come back to you, and it may not be.
And so, I mean, your opinions may not change, and so I'm going to run through what I heard. So I'm going to kind of go one by one, and so Camino al Lago, I didn't hear that much support for from the committee.
I mean, like I said, my view is I hate doing it to the major cross streets, but doing like Edge, just such a narrow street, and same thing with Camino al Lago. I'm open to kind of those, but
Okay,
touching Valpo.
So is there support for Camino al Lago? Again, this would have to be coordinated
We'll
with,
do a poll
the county.
as he brings them
Yeah,
up.
should we do it à la carte?
A poll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, a la carte, definitely. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm.
I got two.
Camino al Lago.
Camino al Lago.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So
Into my madness.
that, around MA and Laurel, the support that I heard was for Edge.
Absolutely.
Edge, yes.
Okay. Around Nativity, I'd recommend it because it's already kind of
It's
already
a fait
set, and
accompli
so
already.
just making the street consistent. Support?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's already there,
I
basically.
wrote no, but it's just, yeah.
Say no to the fait accompli.
I mean, I'd love to see that court case where,
So Encinal, I did not hear that much. There was public input, but the committee, I didn't hear definite support from.
No.
I absolutely agree. Let's try to make Encinal safer speed limits.
Okay. Adelante Selby is another one I did not hear support for. Sacred Heart.
I just
No.
don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
Elena, no.
Emily,
Art,
yes.
no. Emily, yes.
Emily.
Emily is so
Emily is so narrow, yeah.
The old St. Joseph's,
Okay.
The old.
but it's
And
the
then
middle
I
school.
did not hear any support for Alejandra. I think there was more confusion around which type of school and who it would serve, so we can come back to that at another point. And so that's it. So summary recommendation from the committee is no changes on the speed limits for the safety corridors at this time,
Correct.
with a recommendation to reduce the speed limits in the school zones on Camino al Lago in coordination with the county, on Edge Road, on Laurel, and on Emily.
Middle school.
Okay, so you can say that's our motion and then start voting on
That's our motion.
it. Okay, then
So we have a second on,
Second,
and all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. Thank you.
Next item.
We thought that topic was contentious. Now we move on to the next one.
That's, yeah.
So now
So
the
the
fun
next
stuff.
one, El Camino Real. Doug's been waiting there patiently.
Um,
Hey, Doug.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. This is a topic that you've heard several presentations on, so I will try and fly through some of it. And we'll highlight some of the areas of where we've been since your last meeting, I guess, and the public input that we received. And then we have Doug here in the audience along with Carolyn Maramoranto from the TA. And then on the line, we have Andrew Lee from Parametrics, who's the one of the traffic consultants. And then Frank Ponciaro with Winter, who led some of the public outreach. So again, just going to be highlighting the background, going over the alternatives that were shared with you all previously that went through the council, and we received some public comments on. What that public comment that was received, kind of a highlight on some of the traffic analysis and the findings from that. Other factors that we want to consider, and then what we have as a staff recommendation, and we're asking for you to kind of forward a recommendation to the council, and we'll highlight some of the next steps. So again, as we went through the conceptual design process, we did some evaluation of existing conditions, community outreach on what was important to them, developed some alternatives, kind of some screening metrics. Those alternatives came to you, went to the council. They were whittled down from, I think, 7 down to 3. And we took those 3 out to the public to get their feedback. And here we are bringing that back, going over those alternatives and trying to pick a preferred design alternative or 2 to kind of keep moving forward. So in the background, I think everybody's familiar with what the issues are on El Camino. Lack of infrastructure is a primary one. Speeds, safety, But we have an opportunity through this effort to kind of guide what others are doing and how they look at El Camino and try and take our vision of El Camino forward to those that have deeper pockets than we do. And so as we looked at our project goals, really it's improve safety, and that's safety for everybody, improve connectivity, quality of life, and kind of enhance and expand travel options on the corridor. The regional stuff and local stuff you're all familiar with. You know, it's in our Bike and Ped Master Plan. Everybody is looking at El Camino in a variety of different ways. And we'll highlight one, which is the State Shop project in Redwood City, because that project is moving forward. And we'll kind of highlight what that looks like in their concept iterations. So in the phase 1 survey, what we heard was safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. Maybe slowing down the speed of traffic a little bit to facilitate that safety, and improving pedestrian crossings. Just kind of highlighting, there's about 36,000 vehicles a day that traverse El Camino. The speeds on El Camino are 35 to 38 miles an hour through Atherton, not as fast elsewhere. I think we all experience it as we leave town, whether it's going through Menlo Park or into Redwood City. It is a high injury network corridor. Safety of users is an issue up and down. There have been a couple of fatalities related to pedestrians in the last few years, as well as bicycle and pedestrian accidents. Even though there is a lack of infrastructure, that doesn't mean people aren't using it. Not many, but people are using it nonetheless. And then, as we all are aware, the faster that vehicles travel, the higher the likelihood of a severe or fatal injury when somebody gets hit. So highlighting back in terms of the alternatives, they all have to balance. There are trade-offs. We have a limited amount of space. And so we have one alternative that basically takes up that entire shoulder to try and put in things. And that was alternative 1. And as we look at this, we're balancing making the improvements to what those potential impacts are, whether there's traffic diversion, slowdown in vehicles, et cetera. So all of the concepts incorporated key elements of enhancing and providing pedestrian facilities and bike facilities, enhancing bike and ped crossings at intersections, and looking at lighting and improved bus access. And so a reminder, alternative concept 1 was leaving the 3 lanes that we have in each direction, using the limited shoulder space that we have to provide for a minimum sidewalk and bike lane. With that alternative, there's not as much room as with the other alternatives to provide a buffer between the cyclist and vehicular traffic. And so the level of comfort for cyclists in having them right up against traffic was rated low. Pedestrian safety, again, pedestrian comfort and safety with a minimum width sidewalk, again, kind of the same thing. And then in other jurisdictions, maintaining street parking where it can. It leaves, in essence, traffic operations as close to what they are now as possible. The second alternative.
That plan, you expect, based on all the data we have, will slow traffic down
It'll
because the
slow-
lanes are going to be
it'll slow
narrower.
things down a little bit, but not as much as the other alternatives. And I'm gonna probably should have covered this in the background. El Camino, when it was built, was in essence a highway going from San Francisco to San Jose. It was the only real vehicular straight route from San Francisco to San Jose. It was built as a highway. Over time, it's changed through most of the corridor. Hasn't changed much in Atherton. It's still a highway. And so the question is what does the town want El Camino to be? Do we still want it to be a highway or do we want it to be something else? So that's kind of the thinking that you and the council, as we move forward, what is El Camino now? What do we want it to be? How is it changing around us and do we need to tie into those things? And so this alternative number 2 envisions a road diet taking out one lane, providing additional space for bike and ped facilities with a buffer and or separation, physical separation. But it takes what would be normally in the other concept about a 4 to 6 foot sidewalk, making it about 8 feet, a little more comfortable, allowing for other features and amenities. And then providing again, a little bit more separation for the cyclists and the pedestrians from vehicular traffic. Then there was what we'll call the middle ground, having 3 lanes in one direction, 2 lanes in the other, and kind of alternating. And so it kind of attempted to bridge the gap. So concept 1 is the least disruptive to vehicular traffic, but counter to that, the least protective and accommodating for bicycles and pedestrians. Concept 2 has a greater vehicle impact, greater impact to vehicular travel, speeds, et cetera, but provides an enhanced pedestrian and bicycle facility. And then concept 3 was that middle ground. As we took this out, there was a large effort in terms of public engagement and outreach. And so the 3 alternatives were presented to gauge where folks felt what they felt was important to them. We had almost 500 responses to the online survey, a good number of them Atherton residents. There were focused listening sessions, pop-ups at the library, at Menlo College, and in the North Fair Oaks neighborhood. We tried to outreach through a variety of means to get people to participate, including email blasts, social media posts, the Athertonian. Hopefully you got these things and participated. And so there was a broad spectrum of preferences, and it almost kind of diverged. And so as we go into that, overall, the responses that we got from the online survey from Atherton residents was geared towards concept 1. They ranked that highest in terms of keeping vehicular mobility, minimizing the impacts to vehicular mobility. Others from the community, from the broader community, ranked concept 2 higher than 1.
They ranked them the same, 299 and 301.
Yeah, what we thought would bridge as a middle ground, actually people didn't like at all, right? You say, well, where did they fall? What we thought maybe would bridge the gap, people were more on the 2 sides than they were for. So close overall support between 1 and 2, less enthusiasm for concept 3. And so as we go into as we highlight the traffic analysis, and we have the experts on the line, I'm not the traffic engineer. As noted, some impacts for the keeping 3 lanes in each directions, but nothing really significant in terms of traffic impact. More so for alternative 2, increase in overall travel time of a minute to a minute and a half, depending on which direction and when. The average speed drops. This is average speed, not critical speed. So that drops when you take out a lane, which one can argue is safer for the bikes and peds that are around them and crossing the streets. In terms of level of service, There was little change from the no build scenario to the concept one where we're keeping the 3 lanes in each direction. There were a couple of intersections where the loss of a lane had a greater impact. And that you can see based on these charts and what's provided in your staff report, really at Fifth Avenue is a critical one in the afternoon. And another one is in the vicinity of Watkins. And so one of the assumptions in all of this is that future traffic signal at Watkins that is part of the mitigation for the electrification project. And so that kind of plays into some of the delay as well. And so other factors that should be considered is the desire for connectivity and continuity with other facilities and planned improvements. There are sidewalks on both sides of us. We are the gap. I'll be highlighting the plans for Redwood City in a minute and what those improvements will look like. There are 3 other studies going on right now, and what we are looking for is a way to kind of feed those studies information. And so that includes the Grand Boulevard Initiative through San Mateo County, where ongoing study and compiling of what people want along the corridor. All the jurisdictions along the corridor are participating in feeding that information. That effort is led by Samtrans, and they are kind of working with all of the jurisdictions, trying to coalesce everything and initiate what's called the project initiation document with Caltrans. And so we take what we're recommending, hopefully feeding that, as well as Caltrans is working on what they're calling the comprehensive multimodal corridor plan for El Camino Real in San Mateo County. And so, reminder, it's a state highway. It's not fully under our control, but our goal is to try and help guide those that are going to be able to make improvements and fund improvements to do so in a way that kind of works with what our ultimate visioning is. So I'm going to say this is that they can and do kind of implement things on their own. I don't know if you were watching what was happening in Palo Alto with regards to bike lanes on El Camino and Palo Alto, but Caltrans was the one that pushed that, not the jurisdiction. So they can push us in the direction that they want if we don't help guide. And so this here is what I was going to talk about in terms of the study that Caltrans is moving forward with for their highway safety project. And so this here kind of, it goes further north, but this is starting from Woodside Road. And you can see, I say, if you recall, if you're coming from Woodside going eastbound and want to go southbound on El Camino, you're coming in from Hazel, and you basically have almost, I'll call it a free right turn lane that you're making the right turn to go southbound. And basically a lane is created, the 3rd lane is created with that turn from Hazel.
I know what you're saying, but I don't think free right turn Hazel, but further up
You get it under the underpass.
on the 5
Under,
points, yeah.
But
Yeah.
you get a
So,
free, you get a
I mean, as
freebie
you're
there.
coming, you're getting that 3rd
Yeah.
lane added at, basically at Woodside Road.
Yeah.
Okay, so what this plan shows is it's no longer added.
Ed,
And so
can you,
I'll
can you
zoom
go
in a little
to,
bit.
you go to 84 and
So this is 84 to the right of the screen. And so basically that lane is no longer added, and they're showing 2 lanes and a buffered bike lane going southbound. Okay,
so
And so this carries across Charter, across the Target. This is center where Target is, right? Trying to remember what's what. So this is that signal at Target.
Starbucks in.
Okay.
I understand.
This is,
Trying to
this is
speak your
the
language.
upper right corner is U-Haul, right? That's the U-Haul parking lot.
Yes.
So the Target entry and signal is right here.
Where you turn right to go into Target pickup.
Okay, and so you'll see that that stretch from Target in this exhibit is 2 lanes in each direction.
So it basically is north of Woodside Road currently is 2 lanes each direction. And it's going to be 2 lanes forever now.
Well, like I said, this concept, it shows it, this is the plan. I mean, I'm not saying it's a done deal, but this is what they're looking at.
But northbound, it's 3 lanes.
And
for
so
parking.
this again
lanes.
continues as 2 lanes
Two
in
each
each
way.
direction. And I think this is, what do you call it? I forgot what the name of this street is. But you'll see that in the northbound direction, there's a lane drop over a couple of blocks from Buckingham to Northumberland. And so because of the speed and whatnot, they're taking that 2-block stretch to drop that travel lane.
It's 3 lanes northbound on the right side all the way to.
Yeah, so, but you'll see that these arrows here are indicating that they
Yeah.
want to take it out.
That's a lot of warning.
Yeah.
And where is it
So-
on the other side? Where is it?
This is where they're showing it going back to 3 lanes in the southbound direction. Is that basically to tie in at Selby? And so in the southbound direction up through Renato, they're showing 2 lanes and then expanding it out to 3 lanes, again with a bikeway on the side. One of the concerns I have is that it appears that doing it this way may not provide for enough pedestrian room.
What did you say?
It's already 3. It's 3 lanes both ways to Selby.
Where's,
Fifth Avenue, I think, is further
Further south.
south.
Just, it's the next light getting
Dunbar.
south or
Yeah.
left of
So
your screen.
Fifth, this project, the Redwood City
Avenue is on our
project,
side before, Fifth Avenue is further out than where Selby is.
it's south
Fur-
of Selby.
Further south of Selby.
Left on this screen. So it's already 3 lanes both directions. So it continues that way
okay.
past.
All right.
So
Sorry.
the project that Caltrans is working on basically is through Redwood City and basically terminates at Selby. Okay, and so as we look at what we want El Camino Real to look like,
Look a lot like
in
it
essence,
is
our
there.
concept 1 is basically continuing what's shown there on Selby and taking it down, adding in a sidewalk. Or concept 2, in essence, is almost carrying forward what is being proposed in Redwood City through town. So,
There's space on the sides for the 2 things that you're showing on each side, which is bike lane, which is a narrow bike lane.
Narrow
and
bike
then
lane, narrow
And
sidewalk.
then narrow sidewalk that 2 people can pass.
okay. So in the grand scheme of project implementation, we're on the way early side. We're in the planning, conceptualizing, what is it we want to see? The next steps are kind of carrying it forward to kind of refining concepts. And the reality is that usually through that project initiation phase, they're carrying forward more than one concept. And so as we talk about what our recommendation is, it's really to kind of take both of those concepts and have both of them continue to be evaluated through those next phases, telling Samtrans and Caltrans, we have a strong desire for improvement, but there's really further analysis that needs to happen before a singular alternative can be carried forward. And that includes lining out exactly how these things will look, impacts to utilities and those other things as we move forward.
So Redwood City's further along in the
They are
process.
much further along. They've already finished their project initiation report, and they actually had in that report 4 different alternatives. And with the exception of one, they necked everything down from Woodside to Renato to 2 lanes. So
How much are they funding versus the state
the state's the primary project driver
for Redwood City?
for Redwood Cities.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, our next steps are, as you make your recommendation to the council, council will make recommendations, will provide us with direction on how to conclude. And so the concepts would be refined a little bit, the layouts kind of focused layout areas have kind of already been developed, but they'll be finalized, and the report will be finalized. And what we're looking for is kind of going to council at their April meeting with kind of the recommendation from this committee. And so it's a lot of information. I kind of sped through quite a bit of it. We do have experts both in here and on the line if you have questions, but obviously we want to hear public input and where you all are feeling.
So right now, all the concepts are going to have a traffic signal at Watkins. Is that correct?
So they've been plugged into the analysis. And so the signal at Watkins is part of the mitigation for the Caltrain electrification project. It actually won't get triggered for implementation until they add a bunch more trains. So it's when they add more trains that the gate downtimes increase, and some of those mitigations are required.
So that's just a function of them providing money project.
Yeah. So,
And also there was a mention of a possible traffic signal at Selby.
yes, so I think that there's been a lot of issues in and around Selby. Crossing at Selby is a real challenge. And so one of the things that we kind of baked in is the desire to improve pedestrian mobility and crossings along the corridor. And that's one of those key intersections that really needs some work.
And Watkins, because it's for the train, it's only at El Camino, it's not at Middlefield.
That's correct. That being said, the town has the opportunity to consider improvements at Middlefield.
So it sounds like, because you're looking to advance concepts 1 and 2, you're looking for the council to recommend one of them, or saying,
I think at this point, with the level of support and input that we heard, we're not ready to recommend, staff isn't ready to recommend dropping either one of those, but because of the lack of support for that middle alternative, we don't really see a real benefit in carrying that one further. But if you want to recommend that continue, you can as well.
So how wide on concept 1, how wide are the sidewalks? How wide are the bike lanes?
It's basically going to be minimums. We only have around
You put that
10
graphic
to
back on
11
the screen.
feet available. And so pulling these, going back, I think it said 4 to 6 foot sidewalks on concept 1, and the minimum standard for a bike lane is
5 feet?
5 feet.
And how wide are the auto lanes now, and what will they become?
Average 11 and a half, maybe.
And what?
So
would
they're
they-
already on that. And so ultimately, we wouldn't go narrower than 11.
Are you allowed to go narrower?
You
But
can for
this-
turn pocket, I mean, for like turn pockets and stuff, but the likelihood of Caltrans going less than 11 on the through lanes is limited. And if you actually have, they want it a little wider if you have a curb next to it. And I think if I recall correctly, Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but generally speaking, they want a 4-foot, minimum 4-foot shoulder from the edge of lane to the sidewalk anyway. And so if you're going to provide 4 to 5 feet of
Bike lane.
space, you know, basically stripe it as
There's a
bike
bike
lane.
lane.
Just so we keep this shorter than it possibly be, since we've had lots of conversation about, and since you're recommending to go forward, I don't think you're going to get a unanimous vote in this committee for either one of those things. So if looking for us agreeing with your recommendation to move.
Okay, so I recommend public input. I think you have a few
Yeah.
folks online as well.
Okay, so let's see if anybody else. Staff, just people online that are experts.
Clarification in my mind that the signal at Selby part of each of these concepts.
It was it was baked into the traffic analysis. And so the ultimate, do we put the traffic signal in or not, as well as do we add some additional crossings and that kind of thing, is something that will be further evaluated. But there's been a history at Selby, and we kind of baked it in because we know improvement is really needed there.
Okay.
Are either one of these, is concept 2 going to try cause more traffic diversions?
So concept 2, because it slows vehicles down, has the potential for traffic diversions, and some of that was analyzed. And so you're going to have 2 kinds. And again, I'll have Andrew correct me where I'm wrong, is that ideally you divert those longer trips to where they should be, to the freeway, so that they kind of avoid driving. And so rather than drive through Redwood City, Atherton, Menlo Park to get to Palo Alto, they're on.
So the only options are
280,
Alameda
101.
and Middlefield
Yeah.
and
So
freeways.
you have that kind of diversion, and then you have some potential for folks, let's say, that would normally go down Atherton Avenue to get onto El Camino. If adjustments aren't made right or other mitigation measures not put in, maybe they start coming down Atherton Avenue, and I don't really see it much, but going right on Berry and finding their way down to Alejandra to get further down. But like I say, we don't have real parallel streets, so there's not really many alternatives, whereas other communities have streets, 1 block, 2 block, et cetera, that if you slow things down a little bit, they're going to find a way around. Atherton, good or bad, doesn't have an easy diversion.
Right.
And so you may think the first time that you go down trying to go across Berry and try and get to Alejandra, getting out on Alejandra is not going to be that much easier than getting out on, so the trade-off's not going to really be there. And we have the opportunity of putting in other traffic calming measures to kind of keep traffic on those main roads. So I'm not going to say that we know exactly where folks are going to divert right now. There is because you're slowing it down, there is a potential. I'm not going to say that they're not going to do it.
They already do
but-
it. I mean, today, 3 to 6 PM every day, the light on Valparaiso, light at El Camino, backed up so far up that street. Coming here, I cut over on Elena and came down Isabella. Avoid that because it cost you 15.
Right.
They're already doing.
No, and you did. And how easy was that left turn on Isabella?
There's a lane in the center you can turn into. Wait till one side
So
clears.
like I said, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to say no, but if you're looking at Valparaiso to Watkins, it's 2 lanes now. coming northbound.
So so it appears in Redwood City, it's going to be 2 lanes each direction.
That's what it looks like.
Well, not, it's 2 lanes once you get down towards Target, but lanes.
In the,
Fifth
in the
Avenue.
northbound direction.
before Fifth.
It's shown 3 right now.
Or
in the
half a
concept, showing
mile,
3
it's
lanes.
3
and then
from, what is it,
dropping
Spruce or
After the
Or half a
Target.
mile.
In the
Yeah, right up in-
southbound direction, they're showing 2 lanes up until Atherton.
And
Right,
that
right
might
past.
change depending on what.
Yeah. And so that's one of the benefits of kind of carrying these things. So it allows us to kind of flex and look at what is ultimately going to happen. Does Andrew have a comment? If he raised his hand, then go ahead and.
Along the freeway, so they take. Instead of
Okay. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and correct me where I may have misspoken?
Oh, actually, I don't have any corrections. I was just trying to make sure I was ready to go.
Okay.
But Robert, I agree with everything you've said so far. Thanks.
Okay. So with that, I'd recommend that the committee open to public comment. There's at least one person online with their hand raised, and I think there. might be
Okay,
a
do we have
couple
any public comments in here? Come right up.
maybe Johnny will.
Come on,
say it.
Johnny.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I promise I won't be here every other month to barrage you with my comments. So, good evening again. Johnny Wilson. Before providing recommendations, sounds like we're ways out on that. On the ECR gap closure study, I really encourage the commission to review the current bike and ped master plan and the typical sections that they had in there on El Camino. The options and typical sections that were provided in the January 28th meeting, as well as here, didn't include the options that align with that plan. And I didn't really know why. I kind of felt like I ordered a, $40 Wagyu burger and I got a veggie burger. And I'm like, what, where was this? These weren't in that plan. And personally, I've ridden my bike on El Camino several times. I don't recommend it. And I don't recommend any of these plans. And I prefer the plan that was provided in that PED bike plan, in the 2014 PED bike plan completed by Alta Design. The bike and PED plan cross sections, they also integrate the necessary infrastructure that we need on El Camino, like stormwater infrastructure. And it acknowledges that the capacity of the roadway is limited by the signalized intersections, not the segments. People drive 50 miles an hour to get up and wait at a light. Right? So having 3 lanes north of Spruce doesn't happen. If you drop that to 2 lanes, it's not, you need 3 lanes at the intersection, right? And that plan acknowledges those details. So let's see. Between intersections, 2 auto lanes is adequate, not at the intersections. And that's where we should be focusing our attention on this, is not what we do on the segments. It doesn't matter. Your issues happen at the intersections. Your crashes happen at the intersections. And after that January 28th review, I went and did a crash analysis along the whole corridor. And yeah, most of the crashes are automobile crashes. A lot of angle crashes, a lot of rear end crashes. They're happening at intersections because people are driving too fast on their phone. Don't see the light change, they rear end someone. Or people are driving too fast, they're trying to turn left and they get T-boned. Or they don't know how to use the left turn kind of pocket we all use. So please, review the crash statistics, look at that, and putting bike lanes on the segments, sure, that provides some clarity to drivers. It does reduce crashes, okay? But it's not substantial. And it's really minimal. And it doesn't address where all the crashes are actually happening, which is at the intersections. If you look on that crash, at the crash data, there's very, very few crashes along the segments. Almost all of them are at the intersections. But we're talking about what the cross-section is in the middle between, it doesn't matter. The focus needs to be at the intersections. And if you look at that plan, that it includes a shared use trail on the west side on page 38, 39, and 40 of the 2014 PED bike plan. That matches the character of our town. It provides the highest level facility. It aligns with our general plan policy CIR 4.2, which says bicycle paths separated from bicycle paths separating bicycles from vehicle traffic are considered desirable. So why isn't that in any of these concepts? I kind of laughed on the January 28th meeting. I heard Mr. Whitmer say, where's the concept that doesn't show bike lanes? And yeah, where is it? Where's the one that shows the path, that shows the plan that everyone spent so hard to work on in 2014? I'd like to see that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other, all right, step right up.
Thank you again, Adrian Silva.
You don't need to stand so close to the mic. You're making it off.
Oh, okay. Can you hear from here? Here's good. All right, thank you. Different than Menlo Park. All right. I wanted to give my support for proposal 2. The reason is literally on my way here, or before I came here, I thought about it. I was like, I could ride my bike. It's super close. I'm not going to ride an El Camino. If there was a painted bike lane as a confident cyclist on El Camino, just like Johnny's experience, it would be unusable to me if it was just paint. So as long as Atherton proposes a buffered bike lane, that really signals that this is a place where you can ride your bike. So I'm going to comment on the bike portion. Please forward a proposal that will have a buffered and protected bike lane, because that will tell anybody who even thinks about biking that they are safe. They can do it. And of course, any reduction in lanes will have its reduction in speed, further compounding the benefit and the lowering the stress of riding down El Camino. So hopefully in a few years, when I come to another one of these meetings, I'll be back before then, but I'll be able to ride my bike on a buffered bike lane. And so just please consider that as long as whatever proposal goes forward, you protect and buffer as much as you can. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? With respect to where you're riding your bike on El Camino, where would you be riding from?
Valparaiso.
Gotcha.
Do we have anybody online?
You have a hand raised. John, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, this is John Langbine. I guess I used to be a member of the BPAC when it existed. Anyway, I want to make a comment on this proposals, or the 2 proposals. I'm actually personally, I'm okay with alternative 1 or alternative 2, and I'm glad that staff is recommending to push both of them forward, because they both need to be flushed out and the details matter. One thing that was mentioned in the staff report and elsewhere is that a lot of the trips along El Camino are really people going less than 5 miles. And that's certainly a bikeable distance. And one of the, I guess it was a public outreach session maybe about a month ago, one of the participants said that they live near Stockbridge and El Camino, and his wife commutes to Palo Alto Medical in Palo Alto, and driving during rush hour takes her 30 minutes to do it. I guess that's probably worst case. Anyway, if she were actually to ride her bike, I guess if she wanted to ride her bike and take the circuitous way through Atherton, when I sort of mapped it out, it looks like it's about 4.7 miles. Whereas if she could use El Camino, it would be 3.3. And my point is that a lot of people believe that well, bikes don't really belong in El Camino, they're alternate routes, but alternate routes really increase the distance. And if you're not familiar with the roads in Atherton or any other community, it's actually pretty difficult to navigate. Arguably the cell phone will help, but I don't have a cell phone, and a lot of other people who may be navigating through don't have that cell phone or not technically savvy to use one of the navigation apps. So you're stuck trying to read street signs instead of looking at traffic, which is what you should be looking minding rather than studying street signs or lack thereof. So anyway, I want to make sure that we do get bike lanes on El Camino, and presumably, if we do have bike lanes on El Camino, some of the people in the cars who are stuck in traffic will realize, hey, my distance isn't that far. I can ride my bike. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
They're buying kids.
I have a question that maybe the consultants could answer. Maybe you can answer. I've always been really confused about with buffered bike lanes because they first started going years ago. Friends that were bikers hated them because what happens is street cleaners can't clean them because of that lane. So there's a car accident and glass flies over it. Now there's glass all in the bike lane, and they just don't get clean. And so, have they resolved that now?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say that there's a difference between a buffered bike lane and a protected bike lane. So buffered bike lane is just striping on the ground. And so like Middlefield Road is a buffered bike lane. Protected bike lane will have some sort of physical barrier,
Like a curb.
whether it's delineators, curbs, other things that provide a physical barrier between vehicular traffic and the bike lane. And so, yes, that has a greater propensity for difficulty in terms of street sweeping and cleaning, because your average street sweepers are, 8
Car width
feet-
wide, yeah.
car width, 8 feet wide, driving and cleaning up the edge.
So
They
Caltrans
have-
has
What's that?
Caltrans has a street sweeper for bike lanes that they use on the Dumbarton Bridge.
Yeah, so
So
there
that may
are,
be something.
there are now street sweepers that you can use in those protected bike lanes. And Caltrans has some. Redwood City actually has some now because they have protected bike lanes. And so I was talking with the director last week. He goes, yeah, we have one of those now. I said, well, if we ever put them in, we may contract with you
Where do they,
to clean
where does,
them.
where does Redwood City have protected?
I'm not quite sure, but he indicated that they bought one to deal with it, so.
They have.
Do they have it on, do they have it on Alameda?
Middlefield Road on the side. It's for
And
Woodside and,
Yeah, so you need, I would say, we don't have our own street sweepers, so we would have to
contract.
figure out how to contract to get that done.
that would be transfer.
The answer is depends.
Okay,
We sweep it now, so.
okay.
Caltrans just like to tell you what you can or can't do, but they really don't want to take care of the road.
That's right. Okay,
Have a motion. I'd make a motion that we recommend that the
concept 1 and 2.
concept 1 and 2.
Second, okay, and all in favor? Aye, unanimous.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is Sergeant Metzger.
Hi, good evening. The traffic staff reports for both January submitted. At the time, are there any questions concerning those?
I didn't see him in our packet.
I think they're emailed to us.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I missed it.
I can tell you that they're pretty added.
Can I ask about something? I heard there was an injury accident at El Camino and Encinal a couple days ago.
El Camino. So that's going to be Menlo Park.
Right,
What day, approximately what?
2, 3 days ago. Okay, all right. Anybody have any questions on traffic report? Okay. Anything else? Move to session.
Option 2.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you.